If you run a local service-based business and you want to be making more money with Google Ads, then this is the video for you. If you stick around until the end of this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how we helped this service-based business generate $130,000 in lead value with only $17,000 in spend. This was an incredibly profitable return for them. And the way that we generated this revenue was because we got them 133 leads at the cost of $131 per lead. Those 133 leads with a 10% rough close rate on those leads and a $10,000 LTV for their services ended up generating them $130,000 in estimated value from these leads. And this was just over the last 30 days. So you can see these guys are getting incredible returns from Google, and I'm going to show you exactly how you can do it for your business too. Now, when you're first starting out on Google, you need to make sure that you have solid conversion tracking in place. Now, I have a whole different video on exactly how to set up conversion tracking for your brand on Google Ads. So please feel free to go and watch that one if you want a full walkthrough. But to simplify things, for 99% of service-based businesses, you typically just want to have two different conversion actions running in your account at any time: the submit lead form conversion and the phone call lead conversion. Now, the submit lead form will represent when someone goes on your website and submits a lead form. Ideally, you want to make that lead form as kind of comprehensive and qualifying as possible. You could have a form that's just kind of name, phone number, email, which is all right. But if you have a slightly more qualifying form, one that kind of forces them to input a little bit more data on themselves, so maybe a little bit more information on the specific service they need help with, maybe some more information on their demographics, where they live, basically just introducing a little bit more friction, it allows you to feed better quality data back to the algorithm. Because if you imagine, for example, that someone submits a form where they just put in their name, that's a very low level of friction, very low level of commitment, and anyone can do that in a couple of seconds, right? However, if you look at a form instead that requires a little bit more data, so it might be a brief description of the problem they're facing, what they need help with, maybe even a photo of the issue. If you're, for example, a landscaper and they want their backyard redone, they may have to send you an image of the backyard. The person who has filled out the higher qualification form, so the form with more steps, is clearly more committed to taking on your service and getting help from you and purchasing your service. And as a result, if you feed that data back to Google of the higher quality individuals, so the person who is more likely to follow through with your service, Google is going to find more of those people. Would you rather be finding more people on Google who are just looking to put in a name on a form, or would you rather be finding more people who are willing to go through, describe all of their issues, and really give you more information? I certainly know which one I would rather go with. It's the person who is trying to commit more heavily to the service. So that is my brief recommendation for that submit lead form. You want to try and qualify them as much as you can, so the data that you're feeding back to Google is really high quality data. And then as a result, you're going to be getting more high quality people coming through the funnel when you tell Google to find more of those people and get conversions. Long story short, make your forms more qualified. It will help you. Next up is the phone call lead. So phone call leads are people who have made a phone call to your business from the number on your website. Now, you want to make sure that it's a phone call lead conversion specifically and not a click to call conversion. What a click to call conversion represents on Google is someone who has clicked the phone number link, but a phone call lead conversion rather indicates a different level of commitment once again. So the phone call lead requires you to put in a minimum length of time for which the user needs to call you in order for it to count as a conversion. So once again, when we're talking about qualification, would you rather target people who are just going to click on the number and then maybe not even call you, maybe hang up immediately, maybe just get on the phone and go, I don't want to talk about it, or I'm not interested, or just be an actual bot that's just clicking a number and not even really calling? These are the kind of conversions you'll get if you're using click to call, which is going to once again inform the algorithm with poor quality data, and it's going to result in you targeting more poor quality people down the line. However, if you use the phone call lead conversion, it requires you to put in a minimum period of time for which they must be on the phone for it to count as a conversion. So you can say, I only want to count this as a conversion if someone is on the phone with me for a minimum of 30 seconds. And if you do that, then it once again sends back higher quality data to Google, because it only sends back data from the people who have been on a phone call with you for over 30 seconds, over 60 seconds, which clearly represents a higher quality individual than someone who's just clicked the link. So make sure with both of these conversion tracking actions that you are sending back the highest quality data you can to Google, because it's going to improve your further results significantly when you ask Google to get more conversions through your campaigns. So moving on from conversion tracking, This is the structure that we used in this account to generate $130,000 of leads over 30 days. It's a very simple structure. Only 3 campaigns were required, and we were spending, as I mentioned before, $17,000 across these 3 campaigns. So it really doesn't take much in order to get a profitable account structure that runs consistently and reliably. Now, what do we have here? So these guys are a business that installs home security systems and alarms. So we have one campaign here, which is aptly titled Home Security and Alarms, plus the area that they operate in. I've just blanked that out because I want to keep their results confidential. So they install home security and alarms for, this is for like residential clients, individuals, non-commercial clients. So this campaign targets homeowners, targets regular people who are looking to get security and alarms installed. And we do that by targeting specific keywords that are relevant only to residential and homeowners. Now we have another campaign here that is targeted at commercial and business individuals who are looking for security and alarms once again. Now, the reason that we have these 2 campaigns separated is it allows us to clearly control the budget that's allocated towards each. If you run a service-based business, I'm sure you know that commercial leads are typically worth a lot more to your business than just a residential or an individual. And as a result, we want to be allocating budget differently to this campaign than to this one. Because, for example, in your commercial campaign, it may cost 2-3 times the cost per acquisition to get a client through the door. However, they could be worth 5, 6, 7, even 10 times a individual client. So for that reason, we sometimes choose to scale up the budget on here if we're seeing good performance, if we're seeing high demand for commercial and business systems. But then if we're seeing higher demand and higher results and a better overall return from just individuals, then we will scale up the budget over here. And as you can see at this point in time, the home security and alarms was performing better. So we scaled up the budget here to make sure that we're allocating the budget here preferentially, and then still allocating a decent budget to commercial and business leads because some of them were flowing through. However, the reason we want to separate these once again is just to make sure that we have preferential budget allocation between them. And then finally, we have a branded campaign. As you can see, this is not spending much money, but this is very, very important, especially if you are an established brand. If you're an established service-based business and you have competitors in your market, it's very likely that your competitors will be bidding on your brand name on Google because they'll be trying to steal your traffic of people who are searching for you. Let's say your name is the Green Grass Landscapers. If you are not bidding on the keywords green grass landscapers, then your competitors can be. And when they do bid on them, they can show their result at the top of Google. And then when someone searches for you, their result pops up first. The visitor clicks through to their website, and then they steal your conversion. So it's very important to advertise on your brand name to make sure that you're protecting your own brand and not getting your customers stolen by your competitors, but also because you want to make sure that you are sending, again, high quality data back to Google. Having a branded campaign allows you to send back extremely high quality data to Google because what it does is it shows Google what your best customers look like. Your best customers are the people who are searching for your brand name because they already know about you, they already trust you, they're ready to buy from you. And once you send them through a Google ad and you register that conversion in the account, that data then gets sent back to Google, and then Google can use that data to find new customers who you haven't advertised to yet within these 2 campaigns, and it can accelerate your growth significantly for new customer acquisition. So I highly recommend running a branded campaign in order to accelerate new customer acquisition in your other 2 campaigns. And if you don't serve commercial or business clients, commercial business leads, then all you need really is 2 campaigns. You need one campaign here, which is focusing on your main service. The keywords in that campaign are going to be related strictly to the service itself, and you are going to have negative keywords in this campaign to prevent branded traffic from flowing in. But I'll explain all that in just a moment. So 3 campaign structure, that's all we needed to achieve these results for this brand. Now, what do those campaigns look like? So as I mentioned, you want to make sure you have branded campaigns in the account. That is going to look like a branded search campaign in a service-based business. What this does is it provides the algorithm with optimization data. It clarifies and improves your attribution by allowing you to see which people in your account have come through branded terms as opposed to new customer terms. And it protects your brand name from competitor searches, as I mentioned. Now, some important tips for this campaign type. You want to be using manual CPC or target impression share bidding, because if you use automated bidding on this campaign type, you will often find that Google will artificially inflate your bids and make you pay more for your bids because Google wants to make you spend more money. But if you control it manually, it does help you prevent that inflation and just keep your CPCs down and not let them rise too high. Only allocate a very small portion of the budget. As I showed you up there, it's only spending $10 a day in this account, while other campaigns are spending upwards of $280 a day. If you give it just a small portion of your budget, it means it doesn't eat into your ad spend, but it still effectively protects your account. Again, the CPC should be very, very cheap, and it protects you from competitors. It feeds really high quality data, and I can assure you that although you may think it may not be worth to advertise on your branded terms because you're organically ranking, it is very, very helpful to your Google Ads account to run a branded campaign. And finally, ensure you're targeting only branded traffic. So in this campaign, you just want to have exact match keywords for your brand name. So if your brand name, once again, is Green Grass Landscapers, all you want to have in there is exact match format, Green Grass Landscapers, nothing else in there. You only want branded traffic coming through. Next up are your prospecting campaigns. Now this is these two campaigns here. These are prospecting campaigns. So what they do is they're your primary driver of new customer acquisition. They're extremely scalable with good data insights, and they are your most important campaign type. These are the campaigns that are genuinely bringing through new business to your service-based business, bringing through new customers, and the ones you need to focus on the most. Some tips for these campaigns. You want to start with manual CPC and then transition to conversion-based bidding once you have 15 to 30 conversions coming through per month. That's typically the range where I'd sort of recommend for you to move over to conversion-based bidding. You want to use a low TROAS when you're running max conversion value bidding. So if you have conversion value set up in your account, just use a low TROAS. If you're using TCPA, use a high TCPA. Basically, you just want to give Google a little bit more wiggle room. You don't want to set your targets too strict, otherwise Google will really struggle. And the majority of your budget should be allocated towards these campaigns, and you need to make sure you exclude branded traffic. So as you can see here, we have allocated the majority of the budget to these campaigns because, as I mentioned, they are our primary driver of new customer acquisition, and they are the campaigns that are going to bring you in the most new money. And beyond that as well, make sure that you have branded traffic excluded. As I said before, negative keywords with your brand name in these campaigns. So you want to add negative keywords, exact match format for your brand name. As I said, for example, green grass, landscapers needs to be a negative keyword in these campaigns to prevent branded traffic from coming through. So all your branded goes to this campaign and not to these two. Now, next up, this is where it gets a little bit more complex. If you are seeing success with these two campaign types, so your branded campaigns, your prospecting campaigns, you can consider expanding into additional campaign types. For example, remarketing. So you have PMax remarketing and display remarketing. Typically, PMax remarketing will be enough for you, and you can do it pretty easily. So if you create a PMax campaign, well, first I'll walk you through what typically these campaigns do. So they remarket to your in-funnel customers, and it leverages PMax remarketing without encroaching on your brand. So it just allows you to kind of follow your customers around the internet if they've already interacted with your ad, and keep kind of reminding them to come through and basically request your services. So some tips for these campaigns. Make sure that you set a higher TROAS on your PMax campaign, or a lower TCPA rather. Basically, you want to give your PMax campaign stricter targets because then it forces the campaign to try harder to find high intent customers, and those high intent customers are naturally going to be customers who've already interacted with you. So this is a little bit complex, but just make sure if you're using any kind of targeting, so if you have a search campaign with TCPA and your TCPA is set to, let's say, $50 TCPA, so you're saying I want to pay $50 for a lead, then your PMax campaign should be set to $20 CPA because it's a much more strict target. It's basically telling Google, hey, I don't want you to spend much money at all to acquire a customer here. And as a result, Google's going to have to try and find the highest intent customers, which are usually remarketing customers. So again, a bit complex, but you need to make sure that you are doing that to ensure that PMax isn't cannibalizing your new customer traffic in your search campaigns. Make sure you also exclude branded traffic from your PMax campaign. This is extremely important. You cannot allow branded traffic to come into your PMax campaign. Otherwise, it will entirely eat up your branded traffic share. It'll dilute all of your attribution. It'll just kind of ruin your structure in the account. It'll steal everything away from your branded campaign and push it all into PMax. So please, please, please use negative keywords for your brand name once again in PMax to prevent branded traffic from coming through. Finally, PMax remarketing alone will be sufficient for most brands. If you want, you can also introduce display remarketing, but honestly, the results are typically not as good. There aren't as many placements on display, and for the vast majority of brands, introducing a PMax campaign with a stricter TCPA than your search campaign will typically do enough in order to remarket to who you need for a service-based business perspective. Now, we are planning to introduce a PMAX campaign to this account as well. Right now, it hasn't needed it to date, but we think it could introduce some additional gains in here, so it's something we're bringing in, but that's the only reason we don't have it in there right now. Demand generation campaigns as well. So these are kind of the last step, and I only recommend this really if you're spending upwards of $20,000, $30,000 a month in most cases. This, or if you've fully saturated your search campaigns in PMAX. If you can't put any more money into search in PMAX because you've fully saturated the traffic, you can start working with demand gen. So what this looks like is it creates new demand for your brand once existing demand has been captured. So like I said, once you've fully saturated your existing channels, you can start capturing additional demand. And it has the lowest ROAS, but often the highest overall impact on growth and new customer acquisition. Because this campaign is going to the top of funnel, it's going to audiences on YouTube who may not know about your brand at all. They may not have any intent for your brand. They may not have ever heard about your brand. It's going to have a lower return on ad spend because these are people who aren't educated about your offering. They aren't ready to buy, but you are showing your ad to so many more people. You're showing your business to so many more people who may not have previously considered it. And as a result, it can expand your potential audience massively. And it feeds a lot of those people further into your funnel. So those ones who you show your ads to up at the top of the funnel, these people who are kind of unaware of you, when you show them an ad on YouTube or demand gen, it then brings them into your search campaigns because after they see that ad, maybe 2 days later, they go, actually, I do need some landscaping. They make a Google search, and then suddenly they're in your prospecting search campaign. And then they may go over to another website. They may forget about you for a bit, and then they get followed around the internet by the PMAX campaign. So this whole kind of system is built where you have a fully enclosed system that does the top of funnel all the way through to the bottom of funnel. And that is the beauty of Google. So some tips for these campaign types. Again, most businesses will not need these campaigns. However, I'll let you know some tips just in case you do decide to start them up. Introduce these campaign types after establishing performance with demand capture campaigns. So you only want to introduce them after you've already proven performance with these 3 campaign types. And expect a lower return on ad spend, but an overall lift to your new customer acquisition. So as I mentioned, it will not have a great return because once again, you're advertising to people who don't know about you necessarily. However, like I said, it's expanding your market. It's expanding the number of people who do know about you. And as a result, it's going to expand the traffic coming through your funnel. And that is everything today. I know this was a pretty hefty, chunky video, pretty complex, a few concepts in here that require a little bit more explanation. However, I hope you found this very helpful. And keep in mind, when you deploy these strategies effectively, it can be very, very effective and produce really good results. As you can see here, $130,000 over the last 30 days for this brand. So if you want some help setting up a system like this in your service-based business and you want to start making more money with Google Ads, please feel free to book a call with me down below. I'll be more than happy to chat and try and figure out exactly how you can start making more money on Google. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. And if you have any suggestions for future videos, please just drop them in the comments below. Hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in the next one.